Welcome to the Leading with Purpose. Each episode is an exciting journey offering an exclusive opportunity to hear from Vermont's impactful leaders. Whether from the fields of business, government, or the nonprofit sectors, these leaders share their personal and professional experiences, unveiling the challenges and achievements that have shaped their paths. Leading with Purpose elevates itself by providing viewers with an insider's look at dynamic organizations that promote positive change throughout Vermont. Join us on this transformative journey as Leading with Purpose unveils the stories of leaders shaping organizations and transforming Vermont with purpose-driven leadership. Discover the power of leadership that goes beyond success, leaving a legacy of positive change in its trail. Hi everyone. Hi Aly. Thank you for coming to our show today. We have Aly Richards, CEO of the Let's Grow Kids, today with us, and I will ask some questions and we will learn about her leadership mindset, leadership vision, and any secrets she has about leadership that she wants to share with us. So thank you again for being here today with me and answering my questions. So
it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, Pelin.
Great. So can you provide a brief overview of your leadership journey and how it led you to where you are today?
Sure, I'd love to. So, I grew up in Vermont. We're going to go all the way back, but I'll make sure I don't sort of do year by year for you and take too long. Basically, I grew up in Vermont and I had an amazing childhood here. And when I was 15, one of my teachers said, you speak with passion. You seem to really have an idea of what, is right and wrong in your mind. And why don't you put your name in for the State Board of Education? So I was actually a student member. I applied and I was selected by the governor, Howard Dean at the time, and I was on the State Board of Education. And that was as a student, I was the youngest person ever to serve, and they had just created the position a couple years before me. So that was really an interesting part of my thinking and development, because there I was, I couldn't even drive myself to these meetings. And so I thought, what the heck do I have to say, or why am I here? And then I realized very, very swiftly that first, just my presence there was critical, because I was a student doing the thing, having the experience that all these adults were talking about all the time. And it really just changed the dynamic and the conversation, the perspective. And also, not everyone knows what they're talking about all the time, it turns out. And so building that confidence of, wait, I have something to add, you can be responsible and thoughtful and really change a dialogue, by sort of showing up and being at that table. And so that was a formative early experience for me. And then I sort of created this idea of what to do in my life, which was, how can one human make the biggest difference on the biggest amount of people, or for the greater good? And when I graduated from college, I went out of state, for a bit then. And I thought, okay, well, what can one little human do again? And there was a major election for the president of the United States. So at that point I said, I'm going to, in my mind, help the person who's going to be the most, responsible and helpful leader of the free world get elected, right? And so I ended up working on the first Obama campaign. That's where I met my husband. And what I think we were sort of saying is in that moment is, let's try to fix it from the inside, and if we elect this person, it'll help this country sort of, heal from the thing that really had been rupturing us from the beginning. And as soon as he got elected, it was just so clear that wasn't going to happen, that actually it revealed that many of our systems are broken in this country. And so, both my husband and I realized that we were in a political world that was like banging your head against the wall, and we aren't that kind of people. We want to lead by example, roll up our sleeves, do work, help a community move forward. And so we actually came back to Vermont as fast as we could. We never looked back, because we said, let's actually lead by doing. And I started working for the governor at the time, and I was a special projects person. What was amazing about being back in Vermont, Pelin, is that unlike in Washington, D.C., which was obvious, where people who didn't agree with each other don't talk to each other. They don't find any common ground anymore. They don't even go to the same restaurants or walk on the same side of the street. Like, there's such a division that we are having a hard time as a country coming together and understanding what is our collective goal. But in Vermont, people do talk to each other. They do work together. We do cherish the idea of community. And these are all elements that I've sort of understood to be effective and sort of created my leadership style and who I am, because I started having conversations with lots of Vermonters. And then my special project became childcare, because everything that I worked on in that role led back to early child education, everything we care about. The healthy development of young children that helps them be healthy their whole lives and successful. Economic development, workforce development, supporting moms to be in the workforce, everything, in all these costs that are going up out of our control, that, how can we rein them in, and mental health and healthcare and special education. The thing at the root of all of those things that we all cared about as a community was early child education. So all of a sudden, this project became my life, and I started working at Let's Grow Kids, and I've been working on sort of a campaign for high quality affordable childcare as a vehicle to sort of live out my leadership sort of ideas about how to show up in the world and how to find an opportunity that's really a lever that when you pull it, it has this massive effect on so many people in a positive way.
Yeah, as a professor and mother of two, and also being a member of a Montpelier community, I know how much it is important to support families with the child care.
Exactly.
Because everybody wants to have a nice family, but having a family comes with all this challenges. So
Exactly.
I really appreciate what you are doing. It's such an important support for all the families, especially mothers.
Thank you so much. And
also,
just on that, I mean, it's what I think happened is more and more families are no longer at home or don't have a person at home for whatever reason, because mothers are working, or because people are, needing to work or wanting to work, or single family households, and we just haven't kept up with that as a society. And when that happens, we get we get ourselves in trouble. So that's why this is one of those huge opportunities to really tackle.
Yeah. So you summarize a little bit how your leadership style has evolved since you were a student. But how would you describe your leadership style, and how has it evolved the course of your career, and how your leadership contributes to both organizational success and community impact?
Oh, just a little question. I love it. I would say I actually asked some people about this, because I'm like, I don't know, what's my leadership style? I work with you, and I got some pretty good answers, but I was really honestly quite honored and happy to hear that there was a lot of similarities with what people said, and a lot of it was kindness and humor, which I think is really important. And I would also sort of maybe say the umbrella of that is empathy. You can't lead at all. You can't even try if you're not empathetic, if you're not a really authentic listener. And then someone said organized chaos, which I thought was actually interesting. And what I really take that to mean, which I totally take that to heart, is entrepreneurial spirit. Because what I've really learned from a lot of my mentors is this idea of just an entrepreneurial approach. And that sounds sort of like jargony. What I really mean, if you drill down, is problem solving. If I really get down to it, I really try to put on a problem solving mindset around a collective goal. And you have a responsibility to make sure that goal is right, and it's real, and it's based on reality and on humans in your community. So it's not just like you're alone pushing something forward, and that won't work anyway. You know what I mean? That would die under its own weight. So there's some good accountability that's baked into something like this. But I would say problem solving around a collective goal, which is really, opportunistic, entrepreneurial, focused, disciplined, right? This idea. And so in Let's Grow Kids, as an example, we picked the singular, most ambitious but achievable goal that we believed, and then we put a deadline. So, we actually go out of business in 2025 after completing a mission of high quality, affordable childcare for all who need it in Vermont by this date. And as you can imagine, that really plays into this focus of sort of empathetic listening, discipline. And it's not just good to be doing good work. That's great. But we were sort of saying, are we on track to win this important goal by this date? And again, back to this responsibility on the goal, we didn't just shut ourselves in a room and say, this is what we need to do and this is how. There was this years and years of process, listening to families who are going to be the ones getting this childcare, listening to early educators who are the heart and soul of this, whole infrastructure of the sector, of a profession really, listening to businesses of what they sort of needed, listening to BIPOC families. I had an advisory group there, and families with kids with special needs. So who are the folks who are most going to be a part of this, and how did they really lift up their voices? And so we've built a movement of over 40,000 people, which is a really big percentage of Vermont's voting population, all walks of life, all backgrounds, who are basically saying, we know that it's it's worth it. It's worth us fighting for high quality affordable childcare, and we're going to lift up our voices to help it happen and also make sure it's done right. And that's where I feel like we've been able to lead that, be a catalyst for that movement of all of these folks, and that's what really is underlying our success that we've seen so far.
Yeah, great example. You talk about like general initiatives you have done so far, but can you please share a specific initiative or project where your organization has made a meaningful contribution to the local community?
Yes, you got it. In fact, one sort of, I would say, so many little things here and there that we've built along the way in this campaign, really, Vermont's childcare campaign. But the biggest boulder by a long shot was last year. We passed the childcare bill, and now it's Act 76. And it's the most expansive childcare bill in the country, in sort of the history of our country and our interaction with childcare and what we think it is and what it is. And just a quick moment of, so what are we trying to fix here exactly? The problem is in Vermont, and like most of the country, 3 out of 5 kids in Vermont under 6 who need childcare don't have it. And of those, the families who have found that little childcare that exists, they're paying, upwards of 40% of their household income, so more than a mortgage. So there's not enough of it, not nearly enough, and it's not affordable. What's there? On the other side, if you're an early educator doing this work, you get no money for it, right? $15 an hour without benefits, which isn't enough to do the most important work in our society, let alone to make this all work as a business, right? Where you have enough money in the system where you can do the service and not charge your customer, the parent, too much. It doesn't work. That's what we're fixing. And so this bill that we just helped pass with this amazing support of Vermonters, thousands of Vermonters involved, and bipartisan, right? Republicans, Democrats, progressives, a libertarian, right? The only libertarian, independents, they voted for this, and then they voted again to override the governor's veto to make it so. It's back to the collective goal that we talked about. We came together around something that we all cared so deeply about that we knew it was worth it, digging deep in problem solving. And what this bill basically does is that it pushes money into the hands of early educators so they can actually have more money to do the work. And the first thing we're starting to see, which is what we're so happy to see, is increased wages for early educators in Vermont today. Their wages are going up. They're getting more money to do this critical work. And the other thing is, by the end of the year, 7,000 more Vermont families may have access to this tuition assistance. So in other words, be able to help them pay their childcare bills. 7,000 more. Now, there's only 5,000 babies born a year in Vermont, just to give you a sense. This is major. The vast majority of Vermonters with young kids will have some sort of scholarship, basically, to support them paying for childcare by the end of this year. And that childcare will be higher quality because the early educators will pay more, and there will be more of it because we're putting money into the system and everything starts working better. So what we're seeing on the ground today, little examples, 55 new spaces up in an amazing childcare in St. Johnsbury, just as an example, because of this bill, and they're filling their vacancies faster than ever before, and they're starting to figure out how to offer health insurance for their early educators, which has never happened. And they're opening another program in Cabot with 15 kids. Cabot's never had childcare before. 15 spaces is going to just sort of change the game for the local businesses there and families. And that's just one example of what we're seeing. Wages going up, new home-based providers opening in very small rural parts of the state that have not had childcare before, like in Guildhall, which is over on the New Hampshire border, is never had childcare, and just beautiful stories like this across Vermont. That is just so heartwarming because some good news is nice to have occasionally, and I feel like we came together, we did something huge, and it's starting to work. It's working.
And also you made all the voices heard, right? So
hugely important.
Everybody was there collectively. It's a great result and success. So when you think about that initiative or other initiatives you mentioned, to me, in what ways do you believe purpose-driven leadership can transform not only organization but also entire communities?
I think that is the example because, if we would have marched forward with an idea that wasn't a good idea, we would have been done 10 years ago. If we would have moved forward with an idea that wasn't really meeting the needs of those who most were going to be interacting with it, we would look back and be alone. Do you know what I mean? It's this idea of we were able to be collaborative, be listeners, and then add this sort of focus and discipline towards a very specific goal, and then keep folks around that goal. And look, it's not easy, and we're not done yet. That's the thing. And there's so many things that are working against us, including human nature of this is too hard, this is too big, this is too scary, this is too risky, or this isn't going to work, we're not going to stick with it. But I think this idea of no, no, no. What are we trying to do? We're trying to help our kids at the most critical time of their development to have a lifetime of health and success. That is such a worthy goal, right? I mean, it's like that should be enough. But oh, and by the way, when you invest in it, it pays for itself immediately and then 3 times over and then over a lifetime of these kids, right? So it's like, it's such a good investment. It has this kind of return on investment, both in dollars and then in like societal gain that you just don't ever see. So this is clearly like the right thing to do. It's a smart thing to do, and holding people around that goal and sort of navigating the ups and the downs and going over the barriers, again, with that sort of like kind and empathetic but firm problem-solving mindset. I think that's what's carried us as a movement. I'm not saying me, I'm saying sort of like the volunteers, the childcare champions, all the business leaders and all the lawmakers and the parent, leaders and the early educators. We've all sort of like coalesced around this way of being in the world and really sticking with this goal and holding together around it.
So it's a success, right?
So far, we're not done yet. This is
people together and like working on a one common, like a collective goal, and everybody can benefit and support it. But I just want to hear like another success story, if you want to share, that highlights the purpose-driven leadership approach.
Okay, great. Well, here's an example. Last year, we were in the middle of this very challenging legislative session where we were trying to pass this bill that was historic, frankly. You know what I mean? I want to overuse the word, but I do because it is, It was the largest bill. It raised revenue, which is a very difficult thing to do, really wanting that bipartisan support so it was real and so it really would stick and be effective. And it wasn't always going to happen, That was a big, big lift for everyone involved in a decade or more of work leading to that point. And we needed a rally to really put a fine point on this, that Vermonters are here. They want this. Like, please, lawmakers, keep it up and don't lose your courage now. It's actually called the Courage to Care Rally. And we had over 1,000 people come to the State House lawn on a Wednesday afternoon, which doesn't really happen very often, just to be clear. And we had these speakers. We had a parent speaker, and we had, who's actually the facilitator for our BIPOC advisory group, and she's a young kid and was an early educator. And we had a business leader. We had an early educator. And they just got up there and they told their stories. You know what I mean? In front of 1,000 people on a casual Wednesday afternoon, right? When you say, oh, I'm going to be a champion, I'm going to fight for this, you don't necessarily mean, okay, I'm going to sign up for standing at a podium and screaming into a microphone in front of, your peers and your fellow Vermonters in that way. And every single one of them just spoke from the heart and told their story. And especially this one woman who's just become such a leader left. It was the first time she did public speaking like that. She got off the podium and said, that was fun. I want to do more of that. And in that moment was so special for all of us because what are we doing here? We're growing leaders together, and now she's an advocate. She's a fierce, leader and advocate, and that will be her whole life. And what other wonderful things will she help change, in society? So it's, this idea of growing that leadership individually and sort of collectively and seeing what a great impact that may have in the future.
Yeah, great success story. Thank you for sharing it with me and our viewers. So I have one more question to you, but do you want anything to add?
I think we're sort of, as you can sort of see, my personal journey and thoughts on leadership and how I can sort of help as a human and then this idea of 0 to 5 and what impact it has on the world and how we've sort of built it here in Vermont. There's a lot of parallels, and I'm just so honored to be able to be in a place like Vermont and be in a job like this where I can live those ideals and put them to work in that way. And I think it's just, people sort of laugh when they see me coming because they know I say this. It's really important for me to say it has been a success so far, as you've said, for all these reasons, I believe. And that's why it's going to stick, and that's why it's working so well, right? We're so gratified to see we did this thing and it's working. and we're not done yet, right? So I think it's just always important to say that, we owe it to Vermonters to get this right, to make sure that this first big bill is really, the money's going to where it should be, and it's doing what we all want it to do, and finish the job. It's worth the fight. It's worth finishing this to have a real high-quality affordable childcare system that's going to work for Vermont.
Yeah, right. And for leaders, seeing all the results or impact, it is very fulfilling.
Yes.
But at the same time, we are all human, right? We need some motivation. And sometimes we cannot find external motivation that much. Then we have to go to inside. So this last question is related with that internal motivation. So can you please share a leadership quote or statement with us that inspire you in your leadership journey when you really need a motivation to continue?
You got it. I love the question. And I actually have one. I really do. I didn't need to Google it. My grandfather was a captain in the Navy in World War II. And he was made a captain of a destroyer when he was 30 years old in the middle of the war. And, sort of just imagining that is something, thinking about being a leader and when, you're called to sort of duty and taking on that responsibility. And he was actually known as the old man, which I always find very funny. He was 30 and his crew called him the old man, and he had that weight of responsibility. But his motto, which has really become our family's motto and my motto, is one hand for yourself, one hand for the ship. And I just love it because it's like, there you go. Not very many words, but kind of sums it all up, right? It's like, take care of yourself. Make sure you're enjoying this life because this is your life that you have. Make sure you do it well with your family, with your friends, with your health. But leave some behind for the collective struggle, because what are we doing except for helping other people enjoy their existence and have as healthy and joyful and fulfilling a life as they can. And so for me, not to get too existential, but that sort of sums it up. One hand for yourself, one hand for the ship. And I do think about that a lot, especially being the mom of identical twin boys who are 5 years old and doing this work. And they grew up with this movement and interacted with it. As like my own childcare journey was not an easy one. And so I think that sums it up.
Yeah, it's a great statement. I will keep this in my mind too, in case I need it in the future.
Great.
So I really enjoy our conversation today. Thank you for being here and sharing your, again, leadership mindset and vision with us. And our conversation really triggered so many ideas in my mind. It's like, oh my goodness. And your energy, I can see that your eyes are like sparkling, right, when you talk about your mission and goal. And thank you again for doing all this great job for our community. And thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
As we conclude another inspiring episode of Leading with Purpose, we want to express our appreciation for joining us on this transformative journey. Throughout this series, we have had the privilege of delving into the lives and leadership styles of Vermont's most impactful individuals. The exclusive journey we have shared have allowed us to hear firsthand from influential leaders across the business, government, and nonprofit sectors. We have gained a unique understanding of what it truly means to lead with purpose. The heart of Leading with Purpose lies in its commitment to showcasing leaders who are committed to giving back to their communities, demonstrating how leadership extends far beyond office walls. We hope you have been inspired by the generous actions of these extraordinary individuals, seeing firsthand how leadership can make a lasting impact on the community. We invite you to continue on this journey with us as Leading with Purpose explores the stories of leaders who are not only shaping their organizations, but also transforming Vermont through purpose-driven leadership. Thank you for being a part of this inspiring community, and we look forward to sharing more impactful stories of leadership and purpose in the episodes to come.